This is Algebra 1, 6.3. It starts on page 336. The lesson is about solving multi-step inequalities. And this is a fly fisherman. And a fly, I don't know if you've ever been fishing, but a fly is a lure that's supposed to look like a real insect. And in one of the examples that we're going to work out, we're going to work out using inequality to figure out how you can make a profit selling fishing flies. I don't know, that might make a good career. Who knows? Solving multi-step inequalities is like solving multi-step equations, which you've been doing. If you can solve 2x plus 3 equals 11, you can also solve 2x plus 3 is less than or greater than 11. This is example 1. It's on page 336 in your book. Our equation, right, our original inequality, not equation, I'm sorry, is 2e minus 5 is less than 7. We're going to add 5 to both sides. So we have 2y minus 5 plus 5 is less than 7 plus 5. And then we're going to divide both sides by 2. So we would have 2y divided by 2 is less than 12 divided by 2, and that works out to be y is less than 6, and the solution is all real numbers less than 1. I said 1 there, and I meant to say 6. I don't know why I did that. All real numbers less than 6. So this example, example 2, we have 5 minus x is greater than 4. That's our original inequality. I keep saying equation, sorry. And we have 5 minus x is greater than 4. We're going to subtract 5 from both sides. We have negative 5 minus negative 5 over here. That leaves us with negative x is greater than negative 1. So we're going to multiply by negative 1 and reverse our sign. So we multiply by negative 1. And then we reverse the sign, which is what I did here, and so we end up with x is less than 1. So the solution would be all real numbers less than 1. This is checkpoint 1. We have 3x minus 5 is greater than 4. This is our original inequality. We have 3. We need to add 5 to both sides. We'd have 3x. And then we add the plus 5 and it's greater than 4, and we add the plus 5 there. We end up with 3x divided by 3 is greater than 9 over 3, and we end up with x is greater than 3. We did not have to reverse the sign. So this is checkpoint 2. Our original inequality is 10 minus n is less than or equal to 5. We're going to subtract negative 10 from both sides. That leaves us with negative n is less than or equal to negative 5. We're going to multiply both sides by negative 1 to get rid of the negative before the n. And we do the same over here. That leaves us with n. And then we reverse the sign, greater than or equal to 5. Okay, this is example 3. We're going to use the distributive property. We're going to solve 3 times x plus 2 is less than 7. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute the 3. We end up with 3x plus 6. That's the 3x, and 3 times 2 is less than 7. Now we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So we subtract 6. We end up with 3x over 3 is less than 1 over 3. And then finally our solution is x is less than 1/3. So this is checkpoint 3. We're going to use the distributive property, and our original inequality is 3 times n minus 4 is greater than or equal to 6. We need to distribute this 3. So we have 3n minus 12 is greater than or equal to 6. And the next step we're going to do is to use addition. In this particular one, it's asking you to write down what the next step is and then to solve it. So if you have a problem like that in your homework, you have to write the word addition down. It's asking about the next step. And then you end up with 3n is greater than or equal to 18. We're going to divide both sides by 3, and our answer is n is greater than or equal to 6. We didn't have to reverse anything, so this one is the simple one. Okay, for checkpoint 4, we have negative 2 times x plus y is less than 2. Sorry, I've written the original inequality. We're going to use the distributive property to get negative 2x minus 2 is less than 2. We add 2 to both sides. We end up with negative 2x minus 2 plus 2 is less than 2 plus 2. Then we're going to divide by negative 2, and that will leave us with negative 2x over negative 2 is less than 4 over negative 2, and then we reverse our inequality and solve. We have x is greater than negative 2. Okay, in example 4, we're going to collect the variable terms. So the first thing we're going to do is solve 2x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 4x minus 1. That's our original inequality. We have 2, and then we're going to add 3 to both sides, so we end up with 2x minus 3 plus 3 is greater than or equal to 4x minus 1 plus 3. Next, we're going to subtract 4x from both sides, and after we've worked this one through, we're left this first part here. We have 2x is greater than equal to 4x plus 2. Then I subtract 4x from both sides, so then I'm going to end up with negative 2x is greater than or equal to 2. I then divide by both sides by 2 and reverse my signal, which I did not do there. Let's see. It should be, that should be the sign. So I end up with, let me fix it on both spots there. We end up with x is less than or greater to negative 1. So the idea of collecting variable terms, so to make it so that you don't, when you're worried about reversing, if you try to get all the like terms on one side, where the variable term has a greater coefficient, it make it a little bit easier. Checkpoint 5 wants us to solve the inequality and describe the steps that you used. And so the first one it's asking us to look at is 5n. I'm trying to get my pointer to work and it won't come on. There it is. Okay. 5n minus 2, or minus 21, is less than 8n. And so how we work it out here, I wrote the original inequality. Now I'm going to subtract 5n from both sides. So 5n minus 21 is less than 8n minus 5n. Now I'm left with negative 21 and 3n, so I'm going to divide by 3 to isolate the n, and then I'm left with negative 7 is less than n, or I could say n is greater than negative 7. Checkpoint 6 gives us this inequality, negative 3z, I know that looks like a 2, plus 15 is greater than 22. Or I mean, sorry, 2z. See, I can't even read it. Z and z there. Okay, so negative 3z plus, so now I'm going to add 3z to both sides. So I have negative 3z from here plus the 3z that I'm adding plus 15 greater than 2z plus the 3z that I added. I work it down and I have 15, which is left on this side, is greater than 5z because I added my 2z plus 3z. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 5. 5 into 15, 5 into 5z. I'm left with 3 is greater than z, or I can flip it and say z is less than 3. Checkpoint 7 gives us the inequality of x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 2x minus 4. And so I'm going to subtract, in this case, at my x from to get the x on one side. So I subtract x from here, and I subtract x from this side, I end up with 3 is greater than or equal to x minus 4. Now I add 4 to both sides, and I'm going to end up isolating by doing this the x on the right side. So when I add 4 to both sides, I end up with 7 is greater than or equal to x. Checkpoint 8 was the inequality is 4y minus 3 is less than negative y plus 12. I'm going to add a y to both sides to get rid of the y right here. I end up with 5y minus 3 less than 12. The y is gone. Now I'm going to add 3 to both sides, so I would end up with 5y, and then the 3's cancel each other out. Now is less than 15. I now need to divide by 5 to isolate the y, and I end up with y is less than 3. The picture I used at the beginning of this chapter was about fly fishing, and I found this picture of a fly here that they make. And you make a fly by attaching feathers, pieces of shining metals, colored thread to a fish hook, and this process is known as tying flies. So the book in the book, the example is starting a business using doing this, tying flies. And so you would have to order, the book, which was on the previous screen, to learn how to do it, let's say. The materials to buy the thread and everything you need would cost 20 cents per fly. And let's say you plan to sell the fly for 60 cents a piece. The question becomes, how many fishing flies must you sell to make a profit of at least $200? And so the solution is going to be you have to figure out what profit is, what income is, and what expenses are. So profit equals income minus expenses. You take in $5 when you sell them, let's say, but it cost you $3, then your profit would be $2. Income is the price per fly times the number sold. So if you sold something, $1, and you sold 10 of them, then your income was $10. Expenses is the cost of supplies per fly plus the cost of the book. So if the book cost $2 and the supplies totaled $8, then you've spent $10. In this case, if your income was 10 and your expenses were 10, you would have a profit of 0, and that wouldn't be a very profitable business. What they want to do here is the materials are 20 cents each. You're going to sell them for 60 cents, and they want to make a $200 profit. So let's talk about how you would create a verbal model. We've identified all the pieces, the price per fly, which would be 0.60. The number of flies sold is going to be X. The total expenses will be 20x plus 15, and the desired profit is going to be greater than or equal to $200. So this was the price, this is the number we're selling, this is the expenses, and this is the profit. So to put that into an algebraic model, we would have we'd have 60x minus, and in parentheses, 0.20x plus 15 greater than 200. So that's, again, this is the cost right here. This is the expenses. And this is what we, the profit that we want to make. And the 15 equals the cost of the book. to buy. So I'm going to write the algebraic model again on this screen. I ran out of room on the other one. So I want to keep the 0 there just, well, for Pete's sakes. 20x plus the price of the book is greater than or equal to 200. So I've written my equation. Now I'm going to use the distributive property, and I have to get rid of my parentheses here. So that would be O. So my negative times this positive here is going to just change the 15 here. So that's the only thing that essentially changes when I distribute this out. And then we need to combine like terms. So we'll have 0.40x, I can leave off the 0 here, minus 15. And now I'm going to add 15 to each side so that I can isolate. And then I'm going to divide each side. Now I have 0.4 is greater than or equal to 215. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 0.04. And just as a reminder that when you divide a whole number by a decimal number, you're going to end up with a bigger number. It's like if you have 200 somethings and you divide it by 0.5, you're actually dividing it in half, and now instead of 200 pieces you have 400 because basically you cut it in half. So just remember that when you're dividing and multiplying by decimal numbers. And so what we end up with is x is greater than or less than 537.5. And just what I was just selling a minute ago, you can't sell half a fly. So whether it's 0.4 or 0.5, you have to sell the whole fly. So it's going to take 538 flies to make at least 200. So the fact that the answer was 537.5, well, the 0.5 doesn't really help. You have to go ahead and add that, round that up, because again, you can't sell half a fly. On the next example, wants us to make and sell candles. It looks like candies there and not candles. Let me make that look like candles. And you're going to pay $12 to buy a book of instructions on how to make scented candles. The materials are going to cost you 0.50 cents, or just 50 cents. The sell price is going to be $2, and X is the number of candles that you sell. So algebraic model is going to be checkpoint 9 in your book, and it's going to ask you 4 things. Your income, cost of the materials, the total expenses, and your profit. And so we would go through, and let me change a font here, a color. So for income, the algebraic expression would be 2x. I can hear the little kids in the hallway, and they're really loud. The cost of the materials is going to be 0.5x, x being the number that we need. And the total expenses is going to be 0.5x plus 12. And our profit will be 1.5x minus 12. So you can look back on the example I did with the flies and see what the equations were for the income and to expenses and profit. So it's asking you to write and solve an inequality to determine how many candles you must sell to make a profit of at least $300. So the equation that you would use here would be the profit 1.5x minus 12 is going to be greater than or equal to 300. We're going to add 12 to both sides to get rid of the 12. And now we have 5x. We're going to take them 5x is greater than or equal to 312, divide that by 1.5, and we end up with x is greater than or equal to 208. So that's how we took the information and put it into a form here. The some of the problems in the questions that you're going to answer here talk about designing an amusement ride, that people actually have that job, amusement ride designers, and they use a lot of STEM qualities. They have math, they use science. Of course, they have to make sure that everything is safe. They usually have a degree in mechanical engineering. You also can have theme park architects who design what the park would look like, and then you would have these specialist mechanical engineers that would design the actual rides once the theme and the ride ideas are determined. I'm actually not going to have you do those questions in the book, but they're kind of interesting if you wanted to do them. That would be questions 42, 47, and 45. But your homework for today is starts on page 339 through 341. You're going to do numbers 17, 18, 23 through 25, 35 through 37, 46 through 50, 55 through 65, all of those, and then quiz 1, and it is due today or at the beginning of class tomorrow. Thank you.